Here's a 600-word explanation of one keynote in the style of Dr. Daniel Amen, without any headings or ending words. Our brains are constantly generating thoughts, and not all of them are helpful. In fact, many of the thoughts that run through our minds every day are automatic negative thoughts or ants, which can silently influence our emotions, decisions, and behaviors. These ants are often so subtle that we don't even notice them, yet they can shape the way we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Understanding how these negative patterns operate is the first step toward reclaiming control over your mind. Ants tend to follow certain patterns. Some common types include overgeneralization, catastrophizing, mind reading, and personalization. Overgeneralization occurs when one negative event is interpreted as a never-ending pattern of defeat. For example, if someone fails a test, they might immediately think, "I fail at everything," even though there's no evidence to support that claim. Catastrophizing is when a person predicts the worst possible outcome without considering more likely or balanced possibilities. Mind reading happens when we assume we know what others are thinking, usually imagining negative judgments or criticism. Personalization occurs when we take responsibility for events beyond our control, blaming ourselves unnecessarily. Each of these patterns can create a mental environment where stress, anxiety, and self-doubt flourish. Becoming aware of your ant requires intentional observation. Mindfulness is an effective tool in this process because it trains you to notice thoughts as they arise without automatically accepting them as truth. By practicing mindfulness, you create a pause between the thought and your reaction, giving yourself the opportunity to assess whether the thought is accurate or distorted. Once you identify a negative thought, challenging it is the next step. Ask yourself questions such as, is this thought based on facts or assumptions? Am I ignoring evidence that contradicts this thought? And what would I say to a friend who had this thought? Often, examining a thought in this way reveals how exaggerated or unrealistic it is, reducing its emotional impact. Reframing negative thoughts is another critical strategy. Instead of trying to suppress negative thinking, reframing allows you to replace unhelpful thoughts with balanced, constructive alternatives. For instance, a thought like "I can't do this" can be reframed to "this is challenging, but I can take it one step at a time and learn along the way." Reframing encourages problem-solving and self-compassion rather than judgment and defeat. Incorporating behavioral strategies further reinforces these mental practices. Engaging in physical activity, maintaining proper nutrition, getting adequate sleep, and practicing relaxation techniques like deep breathing can improve brain function and emotional regulation. Surrounding yourself with positive influences and seeking social support also helps reduce the impact of ant, as your environment plays a role in shaping your thought patterns. Keeping a thought journal can be a practical way to track negative patterns and monitor progress. By writing down your thoughts, identifying triggers, and noting how you respond, you gain insight into recurring ant and develop strategies to address them over time. Recognizing that thoughts are not facts is essential. You have the ability to control which thoughts you give power to and which ones you let pass without affecting your mood or actions. The goal is not to eliminate negative thinking entirely, but to prevent automatic negative thoughts from dominating your mind. With practice, awareness, and intentional strategies, it is possible to reduce the frequency and intensity of ant. Over time, this leads to greater emotional resilience, clearer decision making, and a stronger sense of self. By taking control of your thoughts rather than letting them control you, you create the foundation for a healthier, more positive, and more productive life. Your brain can become an ally, supporting your goals, creativity, and well-being instead of undermining them through patterns of negativity if you want. I can prepare *** the remaining 5 keynote explanations in the same style and length ***, so you'll have all 6 ready. Do you want me to do that next? Here's a 600-word explanation of a second keynote in the style of Dr. Daniel A. Men, without any headings or ending words. The way we think directly affects the way we feel and the choices we make in life. Our brains are wired to respond to patterns, and unfortunately, many people develop habitual negative thinking that becomes automatic, shaping their reality without conscious awareness. Understanding how to manage these automatic negative thoughts, or ants, is crucial for improving mental health, increasing productivity, and building stronger relationships. ANT often arise from cognitive distortions, which are faulty ways of interpreting events. Common distortions include all or nothing thinking, filtering, emotional reasoning, labeling, and blaming. All or nothing thinking occurs when situations are seen in extremes, such as believing you are either perfect or a total failure. Filtering involves focusing exclusively on negative details while ignoring positive aspects of a situation. Emotional reasoning is when we assume that feelings reflect objective reality, leading to statements like "I feel worthless, therefore I am worthless." Labeling applies extreme generalizations to oneself or others, and blaming redirects responsibility outward or inward in unhelpful ways. Recognizing these distortions requires conscious attention to the flow of thoughts. One effective approach is mindfulness, which trains the mind to observe thoughts without becoming entangled in them. By paying attention to your thoughts as if you are an outside observer, you can detect patterns that were previously unconscious. Once a negative thought is identified, questioning its validity is essential. Ask yourself whether the thought is based on evidence or assumptions. Consider alternative explanations and evaluate the consequences of believing it. This process, often called cognitive restructuring, allows you to separate fact from fiction and reduces the emotional weight of distorted thinking. Alongside questioning thoughts, reframing them in a balanced way is crucial. Reframing involves taking a negative thought and replacing it with one that is more realistic and constructive. For example, a thought like "I always mess up" can be reframed to "sometimes I make mistakes, but I learn and improve each time." Reframing shifts the focus from self-criticism to growth and problem-solving, which strengthens self-confidence and resilience. Behavioral strategies also support mental reframing. Regular physical activity promotes the production of neurotransmitters that enhance mood and cognitive function. Adequate sleep is essential for emotional regulation and memory consolidation, while healthy nutrition supports brain health. Social connections act as a buffer against negative thinking, and engaging in meaningful activities provides evidence of competence and achievement that counteracts ANT. Another powerful technique is keeping a thought record, where negative thoughts are written down along with their triggers, emotional impact, and a reframed perspective. This not only helps identify recurring patterns, but also creates a tangible record of progress, reinforcing the belief that change is possible. It is important to understand that ANT are not facts, and having them does not mean there is something wrong with you. They are simply automatic mental patterns that can be influenced and managed with awareness and practice. By systematically noticing, questioning, and reframing negative thoughts, the brain gradually forms new, healthier pathways, reducing the intensity and frequency of ANT. Over time, this leads to increased emotional stability, clearer thinking, better decision making, and improved relationships. The brain has remarkable plasticity, meaning it can reorganize itself based on experiences and repeated practices. This ability allows individuals to replace automatic negative thinking with more constructive, balanced, and positive patterns. Developing this skill requires patience, persistence, and commitment, but the rewards include greater confidence, resilience, and the ability to live more fully in the present. If you want, I can continue by preparing keynotes 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the same style and length so you'll have the full set of 6 speeches. Do you want me to do that? Here's a 600-word explanation of a third keynote in the style of Dr. Daniel A. Men, without any headings or ending words. Many people go through life feeling trapped by their own thoughts, unaware of how automatic negative thinking can limit their potential and affect their mental and physical health. Automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs, are the habitual, often unconscious mental patterns that create stress, self-doubt, and anxiety. These thoughts may appear as fleeting doubts, harsh self-criticism, or catastrophic predictions, but over time they can shape the way we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Understanding the origins and mechanisms of these thoughts is essential for taking control over them and improving overall well-being. ANT often stem from learned patterns in childhood, traumatic experiences, or repeated negative reinforcement from the environment. The brain tends to default to these negative patterns because it perceives them as protective, even when they are inaccurate or harmful. Recognizing this helps individuals realize that these thoughts are not inherent truths, but rather mental habits that can be changed. One common type of ANT is overgeneralization, which occurs when one negative event is assumed to represent a never-ending pattern. For example, failing a single project at work may lead to the belief that one is incompetent in all areas of life. Another is catastrophizing, which involves imagining the worst possible outcomes in situations where they are unlikely or unrealistic. Mind reading is also frequent, where one assumes they know what others are thinking, often expecting negative judgment or criticism. Personalization leads to taking responsibility for events beyond one's control, increasing feelings of guilt or shame. The first step in addressing ANT is awareness. Mindfulness techniques allow individuals to observe their thoughts without automatically reacting or accepting them as true. By developing the skill to notice when negative thoughts arise, a person can create a pause between thought and reaction, providing the opportunity to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Once identified, challenging the validity of ANT is a powerful next step. Questioning a thought with inquiries like, "Is this really true?" or "What evidence do I have for and against this?" helps to distinguish fact from distorted perception. This cognitive restructuring reduces the intensity of negative thinking and shifts focus toward more balanced, accurate interpretations of reality. Reframing thoughts is an equally important strategy. Instead of trying to suppress negativity, reframing transforms harmful patterns into constructive perspectives. For instance, a thought such as "I can't handle this" can be reframed to "This is difficult, but I can take it one step at a time and learn as I go." Reframing promotes problem solving, self-compassion, and resilience, and gradually trains the brain to respond differently to challenges. Supporting these mental strategies with behavioral and lifestyle practices enhances their effectiveness. Regular physical activity stimulates neurotransmitters that improve mood and cognitive function. Sufficient sleep and balanced nutrition optimize brain health and emotional regulation. Social support and engagement in meaningful activities counteract the isolation that often fuels negative thinking. Keeping a thought journal provides a concrete way to track patterns, identify triggers, and monitor progress. Writing down their emotional impact and reframed perspectives creates accountability and reinforces positive change. It is critical to remember that thoughts are not facts. Can be persistent, but they do not define a person's abilities, worth, or future. By consistently observing, challenging, and reframing negative thoughts, the brain develops new pathways that weaken unhelpful automatic patterns. Over time, this process strengthens mental clarity, emotional resilience, and self-confidence, allowing individuals to make better decisions, respond to challenges more effectively, and build healthier relationships. The power to transform thought patterns lies within intentional practice, and by taking control of the mind, it is possible to replace habitual negativity with greater peace, focus, and optimism. Creating a foundation for lasting personal growth if you want. I can continue with *** keynote 4, 5, and 6 ** in the same style and word count, so you'll have all 6 complete. Do you want me to do that next? Here's a 600-word explanation of a 4th keynote in the style of Dr. Daniel A. Men, without any headings or ending words. Our minds are constantly producing thoughts, many of which happen automatically and without conscious awareness. Some of these automatic thoughts are negative and can interfere with our well-being, productivity, and happiness. These automatic negative thoughts, or ants, are mental patterns that become ingrained over time and influence how we perceive ourselves, others, and the world. They often arise in response to stress, fear, or perceived threats, and can reinforce feelings of anxiety, self-doubt, and hopelessness. Understanding the nature of these thoughts is essential for learning how to reduce their influence and regain control over our mental landscape. Often takes specific forms such as black and white thinking, jumping to conclusions, magnification, and minimization. Black and white thinking interprets situations in extremes, leaving no room for nuance, such as believing a small mistake makes someone a total failure. Jumping to conclusions involves predicting negative outcomes without sufficient evidence, often assuming the worst-case scenario. Magnification exaggerates problems or potential consequences, while minimization downplays positive events or accomplishments, making them seem insignificant. Recognizing these patterns requires intentional awareness. Mindfulness is a practical method for developing this awareness, as it teaches individuals to observe thoughts without automatically accepting them as truth. By noticing as they arise, a person can create mental space to examine and respond to them more effectively. Challenging negative thoughts is the next critical step. This involves evaluating whether a thought is factually accurate, considering alternative perspectives, and asking whether there is evidence to support or contradict the thought. This process, often called cognitive restructuring, allows the mind to separate emotional reactions from objective reality, reducing the power of habitual negativity. Reframing is another key strategy for managing Reframing does not involve denying challenges or pretending everything is perfect. Rather, it shifts thinking toward a more balanced, solution-focused approach. For example, a thought like "I can't handle this situation" can be reframed as "this is challenging, but I have handled difficult situations before, and I can find ways to manage it." This method encourages problem solving and self-compassion while gradually reshaping thought patterns. Lifestyle habits and behavioral strategies play an essential role in reinforcing mental changes. Physical exercise promotes the release of neurotransmitters that enhance mood, focus, and cognitive flexibility. Proper nutrition and hydration support brain function and emotional regulation. Adequate sleep is necessary for memory consolidation and emotional stability, while social connections provide support and reduce the sense of isolation that often fuels negative thinking. Engaging in meaningful activities and setting achievable goals provides evidence of competence and capability, counteracting the influence of ANT. Another useful technique is maintaining a thought journal. Writing down automatic negative thoughts, the context in which they appear, and reframed perspectives helps identify recurring patterns and triggers. It also allows individuals to track progress, providing tangible proof that negative thought patterns can be altered with consistent effort. It is important to understand that ANT are not reflective of personal failure or weakness. They are learned mental habits that can be managed and reshaped through awareness, cognitive techniques, and consistent practice. By observing, questioning, and reframing these thoughts, the brain can develop new pathways that reduce the frequency and intensity of automatic negativity. Over time, this leads to enhanced emotional resilience, improved self-confidence, clearer decision-making, and better relationships. The brain's plasticity allows it to reorganize and strengthen positive thinking patterns, providing the ability to shift from reactive, negative cycles to intentional, constructive thought processes. Through commitment to these practices, individuals can gradually free themselves from the control of ANT, creating a mental environment that supports growth, focus, and overall well-being. If you want, I can now continue with *** Keynote 5 and Keynote 6 ** in the same style and word count, so you will have all 6 complete. Do you want me to do that? Here's a 600-word explanation of a 5th keynote in the style of Dr. Daniel Amen without any headings or ending words. The mind has incredible power to shape our experiences, and much of that power is influenced by the thoughts we allow to dominate our consciousness. Automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs, are those habitual, often unconscious patterns of thinking that tend to focus on what is wrong, what might go wrong, or how we might fail. They operate in the background, affecting mood, behavior, and decision-making, often without our awareness. These thoughts can feel accurate and unavoidable, but in reality, they are mental habits that can be identified, challenged, and transformed. Understanding the structure and triggers of ANT is the first step in taking control of them. Common forms include overgeneralization, catastrophizing, filtering, labeling, and personalization. Overgeneralization occurs when a single negative event is seen as a reflection of a permanent pattern, creating a sense of hopelessness. Catastrophizing magnifies problems or predicts disastrous outcomes without sufficient evidence, generating unnecessary stress. Filtering emphasizes negative aspects while ignoring positive ones, distorting perception. Labeling applies extreme and often untrue labels to oneself or others, such as calling oneself a failure after a single mistake. Personalization involves taking responsibility for events that are outside one's control, leading to unwarranted guilt and anxiety. Developing awareness of these thought patterns is essential. Mindfulness practices train the mind to observe thoughts without judgment, allowing individuals to recognize when ANT are present. By simply noticing these thoughts, one can interrupt the automatic cycle and begin to evaluate their accuracy. Once an ANT has been identified, questioning its validity becomes crucial. This process, often called cognitive restructuring, involves asking whether the thought is based on objective facts or assumptions, considering alternative explanations, and reflecting on how likely the predicted outcomes truly are. Examining thoughts in this manner weakens their emotional hold and creates space for more balanced perspectives. Reframing negative thoughts is an effective method for replacing harmful mental patterns with constructive alternatives. Rather than attempting to suppress negativity, reframing shifts focus toward realistic and solution-oriented thinking. For example, a thought such as "I always fail at everything" can be reframed as "I sometimes encounter challenges, but I can learn from these experiences and improve over time." This approach encourages resilience, problem solving, and self-compassion. Behavioral strategies also support mental change. Physical exercise boosts neurotransmitters that improve mood, attention, and cognitive function. Adequate sleep ensures emotional stability and memory consolidation, while proper nutrition sustains brain health. Engaging in meaningful activities and cultivating supportive relationships reinforces positive thinking, providing tangible evidence that challenges can be faced and managed successfully. Keeping a thought journal is a practical technique to track negative patterns, identify triggers, and record reframed perspectives. Documenting thoughts and progress allows individuals to see patterns clearly and reinforces the belief that change is possible. It is important to remember that thoughts are not facts. ANT may be frequent and persistent, but they do not define personal worth or capabilities. By practicing awareness, challenging distorted thoughts, and consistently reframing them, the brain develops new pathways that reduce the automatic nature of negativity. Over time, this process enhances emotional resilience, mental clarity, self-confidence, and the ability to navigate life's challenges effectively. The brain's natural plasticity allows it to reorganize and strengthen positive thinking patterns, creating a foundation for intentional living, greater happiness, and more effective decision making. Through commitment to these practices, individuals gradually gain control over their thoughts, reducing the power of ANT and opening the way for a more balanced, focused, and fulfilling approach to life. If you want, I can now complete the series with *** keynote 6 ** in the same style and word count. So you will have all 6 keynotes fully explained. Do you want me to do that? Here's a 600-word explanation of a 6th keynote in the style of Dr. Daniel A. Men, without any headings or ending words. Our thoughts shape our emotions, decisions, and ultimately the quality of our lives. Automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs, are mental patterns that occur without conscious intention, often skewed toward pessimism, self-criticism, or fear. They are called automatic because they appear spontaneously, and negative because they distort reality, erode confidence, and increase stress. While everyone experiences these thoughts, when left unchecked, they can dominate our mental landscape, influencing behavior and limiting potential. Understanding the mechanisms behind ANT is the first step toward reducing their influence. These thoughts often follow predictable patterns, including overgeneralization, catastrophizing, mind reading, personalization, and labeling. Overgeneralization interprets a single negative event as an ongoing, universal failure, creating a sense of hopelessness. Catastrophizing magnifies problems, assuming the worst case scenario without evidence. Mind reading involves assuming knowledge of others' thoughts, usually negative judgments or criticism. Personalization occurs when individuals take responsibility for events beyond their control, and labeling applies harsh, generalized terms to oneself or others, such as "I'm a failure," or "they are unreliable." Recognizing these patterns requires intentional awareness, and mindfulness is a practical way to cultivate it. By observing thoughts as they arise without judgment, individuals gain the ability to notice A&T before automatically reacting, creating space for conscious evaluation. Once an A&T is identified, questioning its validity becomes essential. Asking whether the thought is factually accurate, considering alternative explanations, and evaluating the evidence helps reduce the emotional power of negative thinking. This process, known as cognitive restructuring, allows individuals to separate perception from reality and respond in a more balanced, constructive manner. Reframing thoughts is a complementary strategy. Instead of suppressing negativity, reframing transforms unhelpful thoughts into more realistic, solution-focused perspectives. For example, a thought like "I can't do anything right" can be reframed to "I face challenges, but I can take steps to improve and learn from my mistakes." Reframing encourages resilience, self-compassion, and problem-solving, gradually reshaping automatic patterns of thinking. Lifestyle and behavioral strategies further reinforce mental transformation. Physical activity enhances the production of neurotransmitters that improve mood, focus, and cognitive function. Adequate sleep supports emotional regulation and memory consolidation, while proper nutrition sustains brain health. Engaging in meaningful activities and nurturing supportive relationships provide evidence of competence and value, counteracting the influence of A&T. Keeping a thought journal is another practical approach. Recording automatic negative thoughts, the triggers behind them, and reframed alternatives allows for pattern recognition and measurable progress over time. It also reinforces the belief that change is possible and provides a tangible reference for growth. Importantly, A&T do not define personal worth, intelligence, or potential. They are learned mental habits that can be altered through consistent practice. By observing, challenging, and reframing these thoughts, the brain forms new neural pathways that reduce the automaticity and intensity of negative thinking. Over time, this practice strengthens emotional resilience, mental clarity, self-confidence, and decision-making abilities, allowing individuals to respond to challenges with a calmer, more constructive mindset. The brain's plasticity provides the capacity to replace habitual negativity with balanced, intentional, and positive thinking patterns. Through ongoing practice, awareness, and strategic intervention, individuals gain mastery over their mental processes, limiting the control that automatic negative thoughts have over their lives and creating a foundation for enhanced well-being, focus, and personal growth. Now you have all 6 keynote explanations in the same style and word count. If you want, I can also ** compile all 6 into a single document ready for use as speeches or a series of lessons ***.